We are live, and it's the two of us. Our guest, our guest had technical difficulties. It's not easy. Technology is not easy
It's
because
stressful, man. I was thinking about what are we going to talk about, and like after this little event, fuck stress, man. It's when you're heightened in stress and you're trying to get this technology thing going, and the pressure's on, and you're clicking. It doesn't help, right?
yeah, and look, if you think of all the things that we can do just with our mobile phone,
Hmm.
not let alone with our computers, it's astonishing everything that we can do. We can look at this. We're broadcasting live globally for essentially free. I mean,
Hmm.
it's ridiculous. So,
Hmm.
of course, there's Zoom, which is installed on most people's computers. So if you're, locked into Zoom, and then we're trying to get on Restream, which is what we use, it's a different platform. So sometimes there is, some, I don't know, not too much into the
Well,
programming side, but there's some conflicts of who wants to take over the camera, and you know,
correct. But I think, and this is back to technology, and I remember doing this stuff early in the pandemic, which was, I was doing training on how to be more effective over Zoom. And the first rule was know your technology, like get real technical, like set up a few days before, do dry runs, push the camera, push the buttons, play with the settings. Because if you're trying to do that in the moment, right, it's problematic, right? And you also need to be quite diverse. I'll use the word diverse in your platforms. I mean, depending on who you're working with, people use Teams, people use Zoom, people still use Google Meets, which is fucked. But now also things like this Restream, which is like this for live streaming events. There's
StreamYard.
there's Riverside, which I'm going to actually adopt next year for the podcast. And you gotta we it's 2023, man. Like we live in these worlds. So couple things. What do you want to get into today? I want to talk a little bit about personal brand, by the way, if you don't.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Given the fact that you got your personal branding hat on.
Yes, and I don't know if it's mirrored right now, if the words are backwards, but making humans better humans. So I need a line. Maybe you could help me with this. You're a good
Yes.
marketing. So the podcast is taking off. Work's doing really well. I'm really sort of defining myself and my brand in the business, which I've always resisted doing. Like I've always tried to sort of push the company first. And for years, I've been drawn to like, you got to get the Greg Witz thing happening and then the company. So we're finally sort of accepted that. But I need a line to describe what do I do. So, going out to podcast, the agent calls up and says, by the way, I got this guy, Greg Witz. He is the dot dude, right? And we've been floating some ideas, and it popped up with leadership, and I pushed back on that because I'm like, I'm way more than just a leadership dude, right? And I fell back to the better human guy. So you tell me, Mike, you're like a marketing genius. The fuck am I? How do I
What's
market?
he's a foremost expert on making humans better humans.
Ah, you see? You see? Is this being captioned and transcribed, by the way? Because I'm going to use exactly that.
He's the foremost expert in making humans better humans.
Yeah.
And if they're
And
like, and both in, you don't have to. This gets longer, but this is a qualifying both in for business and personal. Which, by the way, you believe it's all collapsed anyway.
correct. Correct. And then it ideally draws you in, hopefully, for more of a conversation, right? Well, what do you mean better
Yes.
human, and how do you do that? Mhm.
So I have been through like so many of these live events. I haven't been partnering with John Asroff. Well, first I hired him. It was his mastermind. I paid him like 18 grand 2 years in a row as my coach, which was way back in the 1998 and 99.
Wow.
And he had live events back then. So we did this, your USP um, exercise.
Ultimate sales proposition.
Yeah, your ultimate sales proposition. So, which is your elevator pitch.
Yeah.
And basically, the rule is if you're not getting someone to ask, well, that sounds interesting. Like, how do you do that, or what's that all about? Then you've dropped a dud,
Hmm.
because if you're going to be, sharing that, then you don't want it to be the end of a conversation. You want it to be at the start of a conversation. So, for
Hmm.
instance, what do you do? I'm a real estate broker.
Right.
Next.
Right.
But if you said, I help, people looking to, get into a multi-million dollar home, make sure they make the best decisions so their family's happy for the next decade. Well, what do you mean? So it's a positioning thing, but
Hmm.
you're selling. It's like it's the whole thing with the classic. You don't want to sell features, you want to sell results.
Hmm.
And I heard it a million times, and I was like, well, it just doesn't make any sense to me. What's the difference between features and features and benefits? Sorry.
Hmm.
So the USB, if you're sitting in the benefit, I help. He's a foremost expert in helping humans become better humans.
Hmm.
Right? What you actually do as a traditional, like what's your title, leadership. That doesn't matter,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
when people hear that, they can be like, what does that mean? The real estate broker one, I help people looking to,
Like
acquire,
generational wealth through property. Mhm.
yes, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's that's what I would focus on.
Hmm.
Is that I think it's great.
Hmm.
We
Look,
have a
that was that
we
was.
have a guest who
Oh,
hopefully
did he make it?
I pushed him on.
There we go. Let's
Oh,
see.
his internet is all the way down to like 0 out of 10 on a network connection.
All right. Well, David, Eddie, a day we are going to get you back next week, and appreciate your patience and all of this. We'll follow up with you right after today's episode. But David, a day was going to come and talk to us a little bit about estate planning and wills, and just sharing some of the horror stories that you don't necessarily hear about when someone passes, right? So family fights, how things get caught up in the courts, how in a lot of cases your intention is to leave your family off into a better position, but in some cases, if you don't have that set up properly, it creates a lot of stress and problems for them. So we're going to talk about that next week, but that's what David a day is all about. And I thought it was
Yes.
an interesting topic, considering that, thinking about generations, we need to look after the next, right? But back to
100%.
personal branding, I love that, Mike. I mean, you're right. I think sometimes it's the simplest thing. And as I was saying, I wanted to push back and say, no, like, we fell ass backwards into making humans better humans, which was clearly defined in our purpose-driven statement. It's why we get out of bed, and it's what the programs and the coaching and all the stuff does, which is it helps us become, in quotations, better humans. So I'm glad that you reinforced that, because sometimes when you're dealing with all these experts, you make wrong decisions because everyone's got an idea, an opinion, and an expertise, right?
Yeah, it's look, the reason why large enterprise organizations never invent anything
Hmm.
is because they're large enterprise organizations.
Hmm.
That's a fact. The reason why Elon Musk comes and invents rockets and puts people on the moon is
Hmm.
because, first of all, he's very smart, but second of all, like, he is an innovator and he's not encumbered by large organizations. The reason why many of the new tech companies do get acquired, and they don't get acquired until they hit like $1 billion, because below that they're a pimple on any large organization's balance sheet. But
Right.
if you're a large organization with cash, just buy the things that work, because they don't have the flexibility, the mindset, they don't allocate resources to innovation. I feel like that's the same thing when you get into conversations with social media agencies, traditional social media agencies,
Hmm.
PR companies, branding companies. They're the larger ones are used to working with larger clients, and everything that they're doing at a large client level absolutely does not work 100% at the small business level. I mean,
For
it's
sure.
it's different. It's just bad advice at the small business level.
Yeah, I've
I
done
mean,
that years ago. Hired a big marketing firm, spent the 100K within 3.5 seconds, and ended up with like nothing again. Because as you said, their solution and their exercise is not fitted well for the small business. So
yeah.
let me ask you this question: if you were to give people advice about personal branding, what would be some things for them to think about, look for, implement, take on?
Well, I think the trend, which is really how I started getting into LinkedIn, was where I heard Barry Vaynerchuk, brand yourself, brand your company. Now,
Mhm.
specifically, he talks about that on LinkedIn because on LinkedIn, your personal page is where all the crazy magic happens. You can get millions of views. And by the nature of branding yourself, you brand your company. If you try to flip it and brand your company page on LinkedIn, you're going to get kaput, nothing. So brand yourself, brand your company. And but it is deeper than that because I'm just giving the example of LinkedIn. But if you look at a lot of our, so look at like one of the most successful hedge fund guys, Ray Dalio, right? He's super bright. He's very successful, but he did brand himself, brand his company because he's got a hedge fund, but all of his books are in his personal brand. So I think there's really great models of that. That being said, um, what do you do to brand yourself? That looks like tough on paper,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, this is the ultimate question, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's a big exercise, and I think everyone's doing it, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, once again, there's it depends what channel you want to brand yourself because brand yourself, what it really means is where are you going to make a concerted effort to put yourself out there. We're not
Correct.
talking about what color shirt you're going to wear or a hat. Like my wife rebranded me, right? So I'm all not always, but many times, and I'm wearing hats now. She rebranded me,
Right, you're the hat
Um,
guy. I got it.
and the board of advisors, my mastermind for 4 years, every quarter, people get dressed up there, but I'm the vest guy, So I'm a vest and a hat guy. So that's a part of branding, but more I think powerful is how people are going to get to know, like, and trust you, and then get indoctrinated for who you are, what you stand for, and what makes you and or your solution special. And so that is the big question. And depending on what channel you're going to do that on, the big mistake is not to try to do it at many channels. People are trying to be masters at Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn,
Yeah, that's me,
email.
by the way. That's
email
you're talking about me. Right? But I'm also ADD and excessive, so it
yeah,
works.
email marketing. I mean, like the list goes on. So my recommendation is based on where your clients hang out to pick one.
Mhm.
So for me, I'm not I'm not like my Facebook. I get yelled at because I actually didn't even turn it on anymore. Instagram, I started working with a friend of ours, and like I didn't even have to log in. And then she was good and she did a bunch of work and I got more views, but like it's never going to lead to anything for me. Like, what am I going to do on Instagram? Like, the only thing I could do on Instagram would be go after the big influencers on Instagram because
Correct.
you can get that list and tell them, hey, you're missing a huge opportunity because your clients are also on LinkedIn, which some small percentage of them are. A lot of the people on Instagram are food people,
They,
diet people.
they are, but you know where I think as you're talking that might hit, that would do really well for you is, believe it or not, TikTok. Being the LinkedIn guy, hey, if you want to build, because it's a younger, sort of more entrepreneurial audience where like everyone's looking to get ahead, their personal brand, make more money, side hustle, blah 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 blah. And I'm still amazed at what I see on TikTok. And in quotations, not that this is you, but I see the old guy giving career advice. Here's how you interview. Here's how you get ahead. Here's how you sell. And I think, man,
Yes.
is
The
there even
answer is the answer is yes. However, the problem is you got to figure out who your mentor is and who you're going to follow. I follow Gary Vaynerchuk, and he says you got to post 4 times a day, 4 videos a day.
correct?
I just, even though I have almost 40 people on my LinkedIn team, we're producing a lot of stuff. I don't have extra people to do 4 videos a day.
Hmm.
It just so until I have the bandwidth or whatever team in
It's
place to do
the
it.
commitment, because that's the truth. Is once you start, you have to keep going.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
if it is 4 videos a day, you do it. You know, on my social channels, just to give you some perspective, we do up to 20 stories a day. We do one reel a day. We do 4 to 5 posts a day, and I do an Instagram live. I do a few other things, but it's a lot, man. I mean, it's a lot of content going on, and that is just Instagram. On top of that, we're recycling on down to TikTok. On top of that, down to LinkedIn. On top of that, Facebook's just a depository that everything goes, and now building the YouTube channel through the podcast. So it's a lot of commitment, and I think that's where people will give up. It's not that social
Yeah.
media doesn't work,
Right.
but
But
it's very
I
crowded
look,
and noisy.
yeah, I just say you just pick one and just go deep with one, and then after
Right,
you get results, you can go do more. But if you
right,
do many of them very average, you'll get zero ROI, and then you'll look back and basically say, "Oh, none of these platforms work." In reality, they all work.
Hmm.
It's, are you working the right system to make them work for you?
Right.
That's really the key.
Right.
And I would always reverse engineer, brand yourself, brand your company. And this is what happens on LinkedIn, because all the clients we have are teaching on LinkedIn. And it's crucial to really understand your ideal customer, because there's a lot of business people on LinkedIn, a lot of different companies. A big difference between an idea startup funded,
Mm.
doing 1 to 10 million, 10 to 100 million, or enterprise company. So once you understand, oh, my ideal customer is there, whatever platform it is, then you have to actually speak directly to that customer. Because
Right.
you can create a big following of 1 million people, but if they're startups and you're a leadership consultant for companies that are stuck at 10 million trying to get to 20, what is a million followers of startups going to do? They're nothing.
Yeah.
So there's some nuances, but brand yourself, brand your company. I think it's simpler than most people think, because you, if you're a subject matter expert, which I think most people were engaged with are, then it's really a question of like understanding how to share your wisdom,
Right. Right.
and then you got the what do you call it? The I'm not good enough effect. Like, there's
Yeah.
another name for it.
Imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. Yeah, I hate that word.
Right.
Um, but you are, because if you've been doing something for 10 years, you obviously can share your wisdom with someone that's been doing it for 1 year.
Right. Right.
So
Very right.
you are not an imposter. You have more experience than someone
Well,
else.
that's what they say in order to be successful is find someone that's done it before you and go and either work for them or copy them or be mentored by them or use their system or whatnot, right?
Yeah,
All right. I just want to hit a couple of these comments because we got good comments today. Branding is not about positioning yourself as something that you are not. It's about purposefully and strategically showcasing your authenticity. Totally agree with that. I was actually going to say that one of the, I think the most important things that we need to remind ourselves of in this branding exercise is it all begins with your core authentic self. Right? It's not about being something that you're not. Cool. Very cool.
yeah,
Uh, what else we got here? We got your personal brand is how the world sees you. It's what people use to decide how they feel about you, whether or not to trust you. Again, trust comes in, feelings come in. I guess, yeah, we're feeling sensing beings. I think that's sort of what we got to speak to when it comes down to our personal brand. Do we create that comfort, right?
yeah. And the number one rule is people buy from people. So no matter, if it's B2C or B2B or whatever it might be, at the end of the day, and except for direct mail, people are buying because of copy.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
generally speaking, people buy from people.
mhm.
So if you can brand yourself as don't even have to be likable, because you're never going to be likable to anybody, but a trustworthy and authentic, transparent person that knows their shit,
It's
then
important.
your tribe will find you.
Yeah, this is true. I want to do one more because this actually, I've got a decision I'm going to make. As we cultivate our ideal personal brand, it's important to network regularly and effectively. I like how that extra effectively in is there. To grow your professional circle, connect with peers and industry thought, i.e., going to formal, informal networking events. I'm supposed to be coming back to Toronto on December 15th for an event on the 16th, a networking event, and I'm 50-50 on whether I'm going to come. My motivation to go and fly is zero. But as per this comment, we gotta show up at these things, right? You don't show up, it's going to be a problem.
Yes. Um,
So we're
uh,
coming to the end, by the way. So let's start to wrap up. So a little bit of a wonky episode today. We had some technical issues getting our guest on, but then Mike and I then decided to stay true to the cause and committed to our Monday show. So we jumped on. But I liked your thought about personal branding and some of the suggestions that you had, Mike.
well, thank you. And I think, I know you, I would say very well now. We're friends, spend time together in Costa Rica, and, making humans better humans. I mean, that's, when I think of Greg, I think of that. So, I mean, to me, any of the other sort of more positional sort of titles like leadership or corporate culture or this or that, whatever, like, I think it diminishes really what you want to do in the world. So I like it. I would the the uh, the global leader in making humans better humans, something like
Love
that.
that, man. Love that. I'm gonna run my stuff through you all the time now.
All right,
Okay.
listen, I want everyone to have a great week. Next week, let us know in the comments if you actually took a step forward and did some branding and you branded yourself. If you got on some of the platforms and did a live or you did a video, and let us know how it goes. We're here. If you want to be a guest, let us know. Um, Close this up, Greg, with our
With our
professional.
outro.
Yes, our professional
Yeah.
outro.
Well, as the audience knows, thank you for joining the Wits and Wise show, talking humans every Monday at 2 p.m., learning about relationships, life, business, entrepreneurship, spirituality, and more importantly, just becoming an amazing human in all of the exercises that we do. If you like today's show, as usual, share it, like it, add more comments to it. Come and join us next week. Ask us some live questions. And until then, we will see you next time.
All right. Over and I'm going to push that button over there. Over and out.